Your name, sir?
Lee Blair.
And you started where and doing what?
Well, I started in the animated cartoon field at UBI Works Studio many years ago in the 30s on Flip the Frog. And the animator that I worked for at that time was a fellow named Win Hoskins, who's long since gone. But we had UBI Works as our boss, who had come from Kansas City with Walt Disney and did the very first model sheet of Mickey Mouse. And Grim Natwick was our artistic boss, and he's still around. You may see him tonight at this dinner.
Hope to.
He's the patriarch.
Right.
After iWorks, I was very good at in-betweening, and they didn't want to let me be an assistant, so I quit and went over to harmonizing and worked on Bosco. And I became an assistant and later became an animator for them. And when Disney's rights to the 3-color Technicolor process ran out, well, we were able then to not use Cinecolor, but 3-color Technicolor. So we began to really put color all over the screen. And eventually we lost the MGM release, so at Disney's they weren't interested in my animation, which I'd worked years to become. They were only interested in the color that I had been directing and harmonizing on their shorts. So I went to Disney's as a color director on Pinocchio. And did little sketches on Pinocchio for the key sequences, and then I worked on Bambi for a while, and I couldn't stand Bambi because it was too cute. So I started to quit, and they said, wait, Walt wants to talk to you. So I went across the street, and I talked to Walt, and he said, look, don't leave. He said, I understand you don't like the cuteness of that character and the cloying quality, because they had a deer they'd brought from Maine, and it was just too much for me. I was going to go to Warner Brothers, which had just started. So he said, we're going to start a musical feature. Why don't you go work on the musical feature? And so they rented the apartment buildings next door over on Hyperion, and I went to work on Dance of the Hours and helped to design the storyboard with color sketches with Jim Bodrero, myself, and a fellow named Earl Hurd, who had perfected the cell technique for animation. And we did the Dance of the Hours, and then I later worked on Beethoven's Pastoral in that Fantasia sequence. Of course, I had previous to that worked on Pinocchio, and then Disney took us to South America, and I went to South America with his Goodwill trip and helped originate the character Jose Carioca with Freddie Moore and Norm Ferguson on the Saludos Amigos film. And then the war came along, and I got jerked out of there by the seat of my trousers by the local draft board there in Toluca Lake. Blaney Matthews, the head of the police department at Warner's, was the head of the draft board, so he saw to it that all Disney guys got drafted and all Warner Brothers guys didn't.
Oh, really?
So off I went into the Navy and helped direct the animation department at the Photoscience Lab with Paul Fennell at the Naval Air Station in Anacostia. And after that, Disney wanted me to come back and work on the Grand Canyon Suite, but I went on up to New York and started my own studio. And for a number of years, we worked on such industrial films as the ABC of the automotive engine for General Motors, and we then gradually began working on more and more TV commercials as TV grew up around us. So eventually we ended up doing mostly TV spots.
And the name of that studio was?
TV-Film Graphics. And we had a large sound stage at 3 West 61st Street. We had our animation department at 41st and Lexington Avenue in the old March Time space. And eventually we ended up with our signatures on 8 different union contracts. So one day the accountants came to us at the end of the year and they said, you guys have lost money. We said, we can't with all this activity going, because we had 4 directors and a whole bunch of assistants and cutting rooms that wouldn't quit. And so we watched it, and the next year we lost money, so we phased the whole thing out. And one of my partners went back to Florida, and I came back to California where I started. And right now I'm painting mostly watercolors and selling them, which is my first love. So I've led 2 lives. I led the life of an artist painting watercolors and the animation field, making enough money to live on. But I must say that animation has been very good to me.
Do you have good memories of animation?
Yes, very good memories of animation. And for all the people that I've met here today, and the anecdotes that we can tell of the many times that we would pull gags on each other and play around. My brother Preston started at Walter Lantz with Bill Nolan, and was there the day that Tex Avery lost his sight with a paperclip in a paperclip fight.
Oh.
So There's a lot of water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned in animation, but I have a soft spot in my heart for it. But I remember I took a watercolor over to Disney's one day that had won first prize at the American Watercolor Society in New York. I was walking down the hall with the painting turned to the wall, and Ben Sharpstein came down the hallway, and he thought it was probably a nice picture of Donald Duck or something like that. And he said, "What is it, Lee? Let me take a look at it. Let me take a look at it." So I turned it around, and it was this big watercolor that had won first prize, the William Church Osborne Prize in New York, and it was almost like I stabbed him in the heart. Because you're not supposed to play around outside, you know, you're supposed to devote your entire energies. So I've led 2 lives, you might say, and I'm still painting watercolors.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Right.
much, Mr. Blair.